crystal beat.
What is up, everybody? I'm Jagger. I'm going headphoneless tonight because my ears hurt. Welcome to another episode of Cursed Tapes, the live weekly talk show where we talk about all things horror, spooky, scary, creepy, occult, what have you. This week we are talking more about American Horror Stories. We are now 5 episodes in? 4? 5? 5 episodes in. Episode 5 released today. So I wanted to give you guys an update on how that's going and how I'm enjoying the show, because I'm not. Spoilers. First, a little catch up on things that are going on in the horror world. We've gotten a few new releases. Escape Room 2 Tournament of Champions came out this past week. The brand new A24 film, The Green Knight, came out. Not technically horror, but horror adjacent, so it kind of counts it up for me. M. Night Shyamalan's new movie Old, which is more of a thriller, came out last week. I will be watching that tomorrow night with a few of my community members. What else came out and what else got announced? We got our first trailer for the Chucky series, which actually looks phenomenal, surprising enough. I'm curious as to how they're going to do it because they're splitting it between 2 networks. So we'll see how they're going to handle airing it on Sci-Fi and on USA. I don't know if they're going to do like part of the season on Sci-Fi, part of the season on USA. Be interesting to see what they do. But yeah. So on with American Horror Stories. It's our main consistent horror content as of late, as they're gearing up for fall season, which is when all the horror stuff will really be coming out. As a whole, I don't like it. I'm just going to start off by saying that. It has good moments. It has good attempts at things. first 2 episodes was a part 1, part 2 kind of deal, so it kind of felt like a little bit of a cop-out, but, that's just me. But that one actually expanded on an old storyline from another season. The others don't, really. It's more just random hodgepodge ideas that I think they had decided they might want to include in one of their seasons, but it never actually stuck. These were just ideas that people threw out in the writer's room. It's just like, let's do a movie about a cursed drive-in theater. Let's do one about a Santa Claus. Like, the fuck? Like, no. They're ideas that weren't included in the main series for a reason. The only one that I found actually enjoyable, which was the reason why the show started late tonight, was episode 5, titled Ball, which, let me tell you, was a wild episode. If you haven't watched it, I recommend at least watching that if you're a fan of Ryan Murphy's work at all. But realistically, if it's going to be like this, where we get like one good-ish episode and then like 3 crappy episodes and then another good episode, it's going to be a very lackluster first season for this anthology series, because I'm not going to stick around for every other episode being good. I think that if they want to continue the show, they need to start including explanations from other seasons. Like, we got a continuation of Murder House, which was nice. We got that. Did I like how it was done? Not really, not particularly. But for what it was still enjoyable. The third and fourth episode, or as I call them, the second and third stories, they didn't really have any connection for me for anything else in the American Horror universe like the first 2 episodes did, the first story. And the 5th one, so okay, let me clarify. Where episodes 3 and 4 don't connect to anything, they also gave me stories that I didn't give 2 shits about. I had no interest in them. They were not well told stories. They were boring. They were very watered down. They were They were just is the best way I can describe them. I struggled to get through them, realistically. But episode 5 was one of those deals where I was like, okay, I'm going to start watching it. I'm going to get the gist of the episode, then I'll start the show at 8. I got 20 minutes into this episode, and I was like, I need to watch this whole thing. It gripped me. It got me. It got me, like, to the point of, like, season 2 of American Horror Story, which is pretty impressive, because I haven't been gripped by a TV show like that since then. Most TV has been very lackluster for me, and I haven't really wanted to watch a lot of TV, especially horror TV, because most of the time horror TV ends up having to be censored to hell and back because of the studios and because of the networks. They have to abide by certain rules and regulations and things like that. You can't show certain things on TV, and I think they're getting away with a lot by releasing it straight to Hulu, because let's just say there's some intimate details with the demon in this episode 5. I don't want to say anymore because it just came out today, so I'll leave you to your own devices to watch that episode, because oh my gosh. They brought back another series regular, Billie Lourd, who stars in this episode. So she does a good job, because she's done good in every other aspect of American Horror Story that she's been in. So I have no complaints of Billie Lourd's performance. Some of the other supporting characters were a little meh, but she was the focus, so I wasn't upset by the episode at all. The story was great. The execution was great. The ending I didn't really see coming. It was nice. It was very solid from start to finish. I do feel like tonight's episode is going to be a little bit shorter for Cursed Tapes, because I don't have very many good things to say about the show. I think trying to do an anthology series now and not have it connect more to a universe you've already built is kind of defeating your purpose. It's more so just, okay, we need more content. They want to capitalize on this streaming deal that they have with Hulu, because FX has a deal with Hulu. They can release shows on their TV, on live TV on FX, and then the next day on Hulu, or they can do FX on Hulu and release the shit straight to Hulu. And by doing so, they don't have to deal with a lot of the backlash from the FX network because it's not aired on live TV. It's on a streaming service. It follows different regulations with the FCC because if something's played live, it's heavily monitored. It's got to be censored to a point where the average consumer watching it knows what they're in for. They're not going to be shocked by what they see, or they're not going to accidentally see something they don't want to, because the FCC basically controls, hey, this is going on live TV. You can't show this, you can't show that, you can't do this. But on a streaming service, it's different because it's not like you're sitting there seeing everything that's on the streaming service played on a continuous loop. When it's live TV, if you just have on FX, eventually you're going to see something on FX that you may not want to see. And the FCC makes sure that that's something that you're protected from. Streaming services, if you click on something then you don't want to see it, you can always click away from it. Because in the end, you fucking clicked on it. Can't blame anybody else but yourself if you clicked on it, right? So they're kind of skirting the corners of this FCC deal by releasing this on FX directly, and I feel like they're missing an opportunity, because what they could easily do is they could go back to a lot of the early seasons, very similar to how they did with the first 2 episodes, and rehash some old stories that were good but could be better if they didn't have those made for TV restrictions. Like, go in Asylum and give us an explanation about the aliens that abducted Tate, or whatever his name is. I don't know why I call him Tate. He's Tate in season 1. Evan Peters. They abducted Evan Peters in season 2, and they never gave us an explanation why. It just happened. No explanation about the aliens, nothing. They could easily give us an explanation about that, and they wouldn't have to hold any bars. We could get a little bit more backstory on the German snuff film doctor from season 2. We could get a deeper look into the Covens from 3. I don't know why they would rehash 3, because it's been rehashed in a couple different seasons. Give us more stories about some of the residents of the hotel from American Horror Story Hotel. Shit, I mean, there's so many different things that they could do by setting them in these different universes, because it all takes place in one shared universe. That's all. Ryan Murphy confirmed that this is a universe where all of these events that are happening happen at the same time in different points on a timeline. So, like, the events of Murder House coincide on a normal timeline. So, like, if they say it happens in 2010, it happens in 2010. And then if the events of Coven happen in 2012, well, the events of Murder House have already happened, so Coven happens in 2012. But if another season is also taking place in 2012, those events are happening side by side. So, like, all of their seasons coincide in one big universe. And you could easily use something like an anthology series to bridge the gap unaffected by a network, because you're essentially skirting the network executives when you release it straight to a streaming service like Hulu, because Hulu doesn't have those kind of rules. They can release unrated content. They can release stuff that has stronger advisories on it because it's not made for TV. It's made for streaming service. And that's one thing that I always found was a major drawback to American Horror Story as a whole, is they chose to release it on FX. And you can't really make something too scary on FX. I mean, FX is a little bit more of an edgier network, so they let a lot of things slide. Like when they did The Strain, they showed a lot when they aired The Strain, and they got away with a lot. But they never really pushed the boundaries of American Horror Story. We got a little bit of the, I guess, sexual content, some explicitness. I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for. It got amped a little bit after a couple seasons, mainly because the sexual scenarios became less and less censored in media, especially after CW basically took all of their shows and said, hey, let's make all the characters sexually active, because we can. Doesn't matter that they're all high schoolers, but That's what we're going to do. That's what CW does with all of their shows. They make all of their characters sex fiends. Because that's the CW motto. If they're teenagers, they're obviously sleeping with each other. So when CW started doing that, it's when FX kind of got the nudge. Like, okay, you can do a little bit more now. So they did. And they didn't do much with it. Honestly, I think they upped the edginess of their shows in the wrong way, to the point where you almost feel like it's at a ceiling. Like as American Horror Story on TV, it feels like there's a ceiling that's holding it back from being everything that it could be. And the point I'm making with this whole rambling rant that I'm doing is that this anthology series that doesn't have to deal with the censorship ratings, the FCC, all that other extra shit. You could literally do everything that you want to do, no holds bar. You can make a scarier show. You can let these weird ideas come to life. And they're not doing it. And I don't know why. Because horror fans are notorious for wanting more or wanting too much. We expect a certain level of either gore, occultness, or like level of occult, or something that's going to make us step back and say, what the hell did I just watch? And I sort of got a little bit of that with episode 5, Ball, but not to the point where I was like questioning whether I should actually be watching this. And that's the issue with a lot of horror fans, is like they expect those kind of things. They expect the ante to be upped. They want creativity. They want to be scared because that's what they're there for. And when you start throwing random shit like Drive-In or The Naughty List at us, episode 3 and 4, and you start to feel like you're being pandered to, like you're still watching Are You Afraid of the Dark on Nickelodeon at 7 o'clock at night. Like, we're past that level of horror, you know? Even the newest R.L. Stine adaptations that came out on Netflix, there were R.L. Stine books written for teenagers, Fear Street. And they gave us an actual legitimate trilogy of horror films. And they didn't hold back. They did everything they set out to do. They gave us gore, they gave us slashers, they gave us violence, they gave us occult, they gave us all of it. It's a great trilogy. If you haven't watched it, it's on Netflix. Fear Streets Part 1 through 3 are incredible. I have an entire review coming out on our TikTok here soon. But that is an example of escalating horror. They knew that what R.L. Stine wrote wasn't actually scary to anybody nowadays. But if they took it and adapted it to a point where it could be scary, like could actually make it like a legitimate horror story, they did so. And they gave it to us and they presented it to us in a way that horror fans are actually going to like. Ryan Murphy is not doing that. Ryan Murphy is still trying to go against the grain and do whatever he wants, and he's not being successful at it. I don't know what else needs to happen. I don't know if they just need to start shutting down his production, or if they need to make his, I don't know, get him a new team of writers or something. Is he writing this shit himself? I don't think so. I think he's just producing it at this point. It's just, it's gotten to a point where it's the same old shit regurgitated back at us. And here we were expecting that this anthology series was going to blow the lid off of the whole deal. It was going to be everything else that we wanted. It was going to be like the unanswered questions. It was going to be the extra side stories, some extra bits on some of the side characters that we love that we didn't get a lot of. We're getting none of that. We're getting watered down, washed out horror that isn't entertaining to horror fans anymore. We're past the point of seeing an evil Santa or a cursed movie being shown. We want shit like a woman making a sex pact with a demon, or the fact that it's not the house that's haunted, it's the suit in episodes 1 and 2 that open her deepest desires and she becomes a murderer. Like, that's the kind of shit that we want, or unanswered questions that were left off from other seasons. And it doesn't leave me hopeful for the new season, especially with some of the promotional posters. Let me see if I can find them. Seeing some of the posters that were coming out for American Horror Story Season 10. So we know it premieres at the end of this month. August 25th is when American Horror Story Double Feature, which is their 10th season, it debuts. We're going to go ahead and go over to here. No thanks. So it premieres August 25th, which we know. We've gotten a cast list. We know Sarah Paulson is coming back. We can watch his announcement of who's going to be in it here, I believe. Maybe not. Okay. Okay, so here's who signed on. Kathy Bates, Macaulay Culkin, Leslie Grossman, Billy Lord, Sarah Paulson, Evan Peters, Adina Porter, Lily Rabe, Angelica Ross, and Finn Whitrock. A lot of big names coming back for this season, for sure. Katie Gerber is joining the cast. I'm sorry, Kaya Gerber. It's unclear if she'll be in the story By the Sea or By the Sand or both. So that's another thing that's weird, is that we're getting two stories this season. One is By the Sea and one's By the Sand. So Murphy's quote where he announced American Horror Stories on Instagram. They did a cast reunion Zoom call. American Horror Story cast Zoom call where we reminisced about the good times. The spinoff we're doing called American Horror Stories, 1 hour contained episodes when we will start filming the next season of the Mothership, and other stuff I cannot print. The showrunner wrote the caption on May 11th. So they did this big catch-up thing with people who have been in the show. Talked to a lot of people who were signing back on. So this was our first poster. One word, teeth. Murphy revealed the art in November of 2020. So we got this last year, which led a lot of people to believe that the main focus of this was going to be like sirens or vampires or something like that. And without that, we just knew that it was the 10th season. And then we got the actual season name, Double Feature. So, and up until recently, all we knew was there was going to be two horrifying stories, one season. One story will be set by the sea while the other is by the sand. They released a new poster at the end of June, which leads us to believe that there could be aliens, because we keep getting a lot of posters with this alien on it. We got that one. It looks like, I don't know if this is a siren or a vampire or what. I'm thinking it's going to be like a siren because they're doing a By the Sea, and this is going to be the By the Sand, and the sand is going to be Area 51, I guess. And apparently we don't have a cast announcement for the second story. We know the first story is going to be By the Sea, which is the cast that we just talked about. It's 2 seasons. I guess because they didn't do one last year, they're doing double this year, but they are on production hold right now because of a COVID outbreak. So what are they going to do? They've amped up this season 10 as this big thing, 2 seasons in 1 calendar year and all this other jazz. And it's like, okay, I think you're trying to do too much because you're doing an anthology series on Hulu, and now you're going to be releasing 2 seasons in a year of a show. Let me see if I can find... I'm going to go back to my camera. I'm going to see if I can find more of those posters that I was talking about, because it's looking like we're getting more science fiction than we are actually. Here's the one I was thinking of. Oh, hang on. Open image and new tab. This is the one that I saw, where it had the alien above in the sand and we had like the siren below in the sea. I don't know how to feel about it. I don't know if this is going to be one of those deals where this is going to be a totally separate story. Is this going to connect back to season 2? Because season 2 was the only other one that I know that we had aliens in. I don't really know what to expect from Ryan Murphy at this point because I have no expectations anymore. It's so wild to think that after this many seasons, like, we've had so many different types of stories, and there's so many other things that they could do. And when they were on the press tour for American Horror Story 1984, which great season, nice homage to the 80s slasher, a lot of good Easter eggs in that one. When they were on the press tour for that, and they are asking people, and they were asking the cast and Ryan Murphy about season 10, and he said season 10 is going to be our biggest one yet, and it's going to answer a lot of questions that people might have, and it's going to have some callbacks to other seasons, which leads me to believe that we're going to be looking back a little bit on season 2 because of the alien connection, but I don't know where the whole siren connection can come in. They got me stumped on this one. Normally when they start announcing when they announce the theme for the season, I kind of have a good idea, or they sort of release a little bit more a couple months beforehand, because like, I didn't actually start watching the show until season 2, Asylum. Season 1 had already come out and season 2 had started, and I saw the teaser trailers and stuff for the next season, where it was going to be an Asylum. There was going to be a Angels and Demons connection, and we were going to get some historical stuff, as well as like the mistreatment of mental patients in asylums. So I was like, I'm in for this. I'm 100% in for this show. So I binge watched the first season, loved it. Watched the second season, loved it. Watched the third season, loved it. Then we get to Freak Show, and it took a bit of a drop. I was like, okay, I have high expectations now. And now they've disappointed me. So you need to bring it back. And they did. They gave us Hotel. Hotel was a phenomenal season. They had a good run for a while. Let me make sure that I knew what I'm talking about, because I want to make sure I have all these in the right order. So season 1 was Murder House. Season 1 was Murder House. Season 2 was Asylum. Season 3 was Coven. Freak Show, Hotel. Okay. So we have good runs and bad runs. So Murder House, Asylum, Coven, great. First 3 seasons, phenomenal. Freak Show, I think it was one of their worst seasons. Then we get Hotel and Roanoke. Hotel was phenomenal. Roanoke was good. It was an interesting idea. I think it could have been executed a little bit better, but the ending was great. Like the last 3 episodes, phenomenal. Cult, I could have lived without. It felt way too much like The Purge, which, if you know me at all, I don't like the Purge series. And then they came back and did Apocalypse, which tied together like 3 of their other seasons. And it was so ambitious. It was such a big deal. It was so good. It was well done. We dealt with the end of the world. We dealt with witches. We dealt with the trials of demons and things like that. And they did a good job. And my faith in the series was restored. And then they announced 1984. I was skeptical. Watched it. Good season. Not bad. Not their worst. Not their best. But not bad. And now and we've had a season every year except for 2020, which, understandable, world pandemic. So since 2011, so we had Murder House in 2011, Asylum ran from 2012 to 2013, Coven from 2013 to 14, Freak Show 14 to 15, Hotel 15 to 16, Roanoke just ran in 16 because they started earlier, And they did the same thing for the following years. So Cult was 2017, Apocalypse 2018, 1984 was 2019. We skip 2020 and we get double feature in 2021. Now, I'm thinking I think they changed course is why everything seems so disorganized and haphazard. I feel like this season was supposed to come out last year, but then they veered off. And they are now saying that, oh, double feature. We're going to get 2 seasons because we already had the next 2 seasons written. So let's just air them back to back and call it a double feature for the big 10th season. It's like 10 and 11 technically. Which is going to be confusing as hell, especially if the stories don't actually mesh. If they don't connect and they're not like a continuation of each story, calling it double feature feels like a waste of time and a awful gimmick. And I will hold it against them for the rest of time. And then there's talks about future seasons already. They've mentioned that Murphy said that the witches from Covenant and Apocalypse are going to return in a future season. And then in January 2020, the series was officially renewed through season 13, which means we're only in season 10. And if they're going to count both of these seasons they're doing, it's basically 2 separate seasons as one season, where we can expect 3 more seasons at least. And if he has a couple, if at least 2 of those are as good and well received as like the fan favorites like Coven, Apocalypse, Hotel, and Asylum, like those big ones, if it's well received like that, then they'll get more seasons. Horror shows that are well received by fans, or horror adjacent shows that are well received by fans, tend to run forever. Case in point, Supernatural took forever to end. How many seasons did that have? 16. And the fans kept that. 15 seasons. 15 seasons. 100 and something episodes. More than that. How many episodes are there? $320 episodes total for that show. And that's in 15 seasons. Whereas we're in season 10 of American Horror Story and we have 103 episodes. And so we have 103 episodes of American Horror Story. We have 5 episodes of American Horror Stories, and they're not lining up whatsoever. They're starting to fall off. I think I don't know. I'm to sum it all up, I'm disappointed with American Horror Stories and with Ryan Murphy as a whole. Like I've been saying this whole time, they've missed an opportunity and it disappoints me. They can easily change course as long as they have the material for it. They could do a smart move and find a way to tie the anthology series to the live show, which premieres later this month, in order to make the anthology sort of make sense. But as of right now, you don't have to watch it. And that's the thing. You don't have to watch the thing at all. You don't have to put yourself through the bad episodes to get to the good episodes. You can easily just listen here and I'll tell you which ones are actually good. Watch episodes 1 and 2, skip 3 and 4, and watch 5. That's all I've got so far. I don't think there are actually any details about episode 6 yet, but I will double check while I'm still talking. Episode 6. Let's see. So, blah, 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 blah. Episode 6 release date. Episode 6 is set to release August 12th. First episodes. Blah, 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 blah. So episode 6 is titled Feral. We have a explanation here. A family might have a disturbing experience during a camping trip. The family might be from the city that has decided to spend the weekend in the quieter, more serene forest environment. They then might learn that they are sharing the forest with a family of cannibals and murderers who have lived there for generations. The next episode will likely be a proper slasher in which these cannibals terrorize and kill members of the family from the city, realizing that they have no other choice but to fight for their survival. Okay, so it may be good, it may be bad. We'll see. If they continue the theme, like the kind of rolling idea, like what am I looking for? The tone. If they carry the tone that they have and the precedence they've set with episode 5 into episode 6, I'll be okay with it. I think I want to see if they have the actual episode listings on IMDb, because for a long time we only got the first 2 episode titles. Let's see, episodes, I think there's 7 total. Yeah. So, yep, so this will actually run up until the week before American Horror Story double feature premieres. So we got episode 5 was Ball, where it says a wife does the unthinkable for a chance at a successful pregnancy. So the descriptions of the actual episodes don't give anything away, so we'll go through them. Episode 1, Rubber Woman Part 1. A teenager and her dads move into a forsaken home with a grim past, which is the murder house. As the family makes renovations, a darkness takes root within them, which is the Rubber Man suit, which then becomes the Rubber Woman suit. Rubber Woman Part 2, Episode 2. Scarlett enters a twisted new romance while Michael and Troy are forced to confront their rocky relationship, and there's a whole mess of shit that happens there. Episode 3, which is awful. It's called Drive-In. A screening of a forbidden film has disastrous consequences. The only disaster of that episode is watching it. It's bad. It's watered down, washed out horror, and it's garbage. Don't waste your fucking time. The Naughty List. A group of influencers face a reckoning after posting a problematic video online. It deals with evil Santa. Like, it, again, watered down, washed out horror. Don't waste your time unless you really want to see. Like, it's not even the good bad where, like, you can watch, like, I would rather watch Velocipaster than watch those 2 episodes again. Let's just say that. Episode 5 came out today. It's called Ball. A wife does the unthinkable for a chance at a successful pregnancy. Wild episode. Watch it for sure. Episode 6 is called Feral. A family goes on a camping trip unaware of what is lurking in the woods. Has potential for sure. And episode 7 is called Game Over. A couple dares to spend the night in one of the most infamous haunted houses, which leads me to believe that they're going to go back to Murder House again. Either that or it's going to be the Roanoke family farmhouse, which wouldn't be a bad connection. Wouldn't be a bad way to end the season, because, I mean, I don't want them to revisit Murder House again because we've already gotten 2 episodes on it, and not a whole lot you can do unless you start bringing back people like Dylan McDermott and Taissa Farmiga, because they were the characters that made that season. It felt a little empty that we didn't even get a cameo of either of them in the first 2 episodes where it was in the murder house. So if they're going to go back to a haunted home, they're revisiting the first 2 episodes again, because I just clicked on the episode and the cast is just the same people that were in the first 2 episodes. You have Sierra McCormick as Scarlett, Paris Jackson as Maya, Kaya Gerber as Ruby, and then the Inventada is listed. So it looks like they're just going to spend 3 episodes rehashing Murder House stories, which is kind of a fucking cop-out, and it's kind of upsetting because you have 9 other seasons, I keep saying, of content that you can dip into for an anthology series. You can go more than just Murder House. You're allowed, Ryan Murphy. You made the shit yourself. You can be creative. You can be different. We've seen you do it. Give me some more about like some of the killers that are trapped in the hotel and they can only go out on Devil's Night. Give me something more about the history of Marie Laveau or something. Anything but another episode rehashing shit from Murder House. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of him trying to present like he's doing a lot for his fan base and doing so little that it feels insulting, because there are people who praise his shows. They praise his content through and through. There are people who say that American Horror Story is their whole identity. Like they've rewatched the show so many times that they could probably recite every single fucking season, word for word. There are people that worship these shows like that, and the sad truth behind it is they're not worth it. Even the best seasons are not worth it, because they're so limited and because they're not allowed to do everything they could be doing. They could be doing so much more. The first 9 seasons being released on TV hindered the show's possibilities entirely. I think if they had actually seized the opportunity they were given by doing a straight to Hulu show, or even if they didn't go with Hulu, even if Ryan Murphy just said, hey, this is my stuff, I'm going to take it to Netflix. Netflix will throw money at it because it's American Horror Story. You'll get a bunch of people subscribing to Netflix just because American Horror Story's on it. Just saying. Could have easily taken this thing over there and been like, okay, no holds bar. Let's give them a horror show. Let's give them real horror stories. Hook more people. Hook people with good content. Don't hook people with watered down shit. And that's the biggest complaint I'm seeing online, is people agreeing with me, is that American Horror Stories it feels like we're being placated to, like we're still 10 years old watching Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark? It's not scary. It's not even chilling. Some of the stories are good. Most of them are bad. And majority of it doesn't even feel like it's worth the time. It doesn't even feel like it's worth logging in to watch. And I'll admit, that's another reason why I didn't watch the newest episode earlier. I waited because I was just going to get the highlights of it, but it actually, it got me. It gripped me. It roped me into a point where I had to watch the whole thing. And it's probably the only impressive point about it. The more I sit here and think about it, it's like these are stories that we've seen before. You're just kind of trying to put your own Ryan Murphy spin on it. And I'll admit that the twist in that episode was nice. It was a little different. It was refreshing, but if I had been of more sound mind, I probably would have seen it coming from a mile away. But realistically, the way they handled the story is nothing like we haven't seen before. I mean, woman makes deal with demon for a baby, not realizing it's a demon, thinking it's a fertility god. We've seen that trick before. A year later, demon comes to collect the soul of the baby. We've seen that before. That's the entire basis of the Paranormal Activity franchise. Then there's the twist, which I'm not going to spoil, because if you watch the episode, it kind of shocks you a little bit when you find out what's going on. And then the double twist at the end was another wild thing. I don't know. If you're even remotely a fan of the show, I would watch episode 5. You don't have to watch any of the episodes to get what's going on, because they're all contained. They're self-contained stories. You can start one and not have to watch the rest of them. Like, the only ones that continue is episode 1 and episode 2. And even if you only wanted to watch episode 1, you could. You don't need to watch episode 2. But I mean, if the description for episode 7 is what I think it is, you'll have to watch 1 and 2 to understand who the characters are in 7. which kind of defeats the purpose of calling it an anthology series with the episodes being contained. Like, contained episodes, but hey, let's rehash the same characters from the first 2 episodes and the last episode in a 7-episode season. Like, I don't know, I'd get it if it were one of those deals where it's like, okay, these were popular characters, let's bring them back for season 2, give them another story in season 2. Fine with that. It's an anthology series. Sometimes characters become popular, and that's how Halloween spawned. Halloween started as an anthology series, but fans liked Michael Myers so much that they kept bringing him back. He was supposed to be a one-off film. It was only supposed to be Michael Myers in the first film, and then other anthologies about Halloween night in the rest of the films, which is why the fans hate movie 3, Halloween 3, so much, because it's Carpenter's original idea. It wasn't supposed to have Myers in it at all. So do that. I mean, I don't know. Using the same cast of characters in 3 episodes in a season just feels like lazy writing. And that's like the best way I can sum up this show, is just lazy. So that's my thoughts on American Horror Stories so far. I'll do a full wrap up before double feature premieres, because we'll get the final episode in 2 weeks. So we'll get an episode on Thursday, and then the last episode will be the following Thursday. And then that next Wednesday, American Horror Story a double feature will premiere. So we'll do a wrap up of Horror Stories first, and then we'll do the premiere night of double feature and see how that goes. Hopefully it's got some better content than what they're giving us so far. But thank you everyone for being here tonight. I appreciate you all. If you're watching live, I appreciate you being here. If you're watching the recording, be sure to like, share, and subscribe this. It really helps us with the algorithm, and I want to keep doing this, even if it's just me rambling about how much I dislike Ryan Murphy for an hour. I'll be putting out more content here soon. I'll be uploading to TikTok. I have movie reviews ready to go. I have a nice juicy review on Fear Street. I have a nice, well, I wouldn't say nice. I have a juicy review of The Forever Purge lined up as well. I'll also be reviewing Escape Room Tournament of Champions and what was the other one? Old. And I'll probably also do a review of The Green Knight, just for shits and giggles. I have a lot of other videos planning to come out on this channel. I'm planning on doing my top 10 horror films of all time. I'm going to do a series on movies that I will never watch, or movies that I will only watch once and never watch again for obvious reasons. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for the other live shows that are coming out this week. Well, not this week, sorry, next week. I will be back with Xander on Tuesday for Comic Relief at 8 p.m. We will be going over, let me double check what we'll be going over on Tuesday. We will be talking about the Suicide Squad that just came out today. It actually premiered early on HBO Max. So you can go watch Suicide Squad if you want to join us in on the comic book conversation. And yeah, I will be back next week with the next episode of Cursed Tapes. Topic to be determined. We'll do something interesting for once. We're not going to keep rehashing American Horror Stories. So I don't want to beat Ryan Murphy too much, honestly. So there's that. So I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for being here. I love you all. Be safe, be kind to each other, and I will see you guys on the next show. Good night.